guys, Rex here. In this video we're going to talk about some alternatives to red dot sights. Now I really like red dot sights, especially the good ones. I run Aimpoint, I run Holosun. I like red dots because they're very, very reliable, they're rugged, extremely fast to get on target. Time on target's very improved over the old system. If you're trying to line up iron sights, for example, it's a little bit slower. The red dot's going to get you there quickly. Most of the red dot designs are parallax free, which means it doesn't matter where your head exactly is behind the sight. If you can see that red dot, you're going to pretty much put rounds on target. And so red dots have a lot of cool advantages to them. In low light conditions, they're really, really, really handy because there's pretty much guaranteed going to see where you're shooting. All that being said, there are some things to be desired by red dots. The main thing to be desired would be its dependence on batteries to work. And as rugged as a lot of these have become in the last couple decades, if you look at the US Army's been fielding the Aimpoint for quite a while, right? And most of those designs, you can have batteries in them and they'll last for several years before the batteries need to be changed. But even with all that being said, there is a natural point of anxiety that does exist in the community, especially when you're talking about citizens who are going to maybe get their weapons all set up for the potential collapse of Western civilization one day after the comet hits or when the zombies come or whatever the heck whatever movie they're watching, right? And so there is that anxiety. That's just a reality. And so there is a gravitation towards stuff that's less dependent on electronics or batteries to operate for long-term operations. Something you can pass down to your grandkids after the collapse, when we're living in Mad Max Fury Road type situations, and it's like 50 years later and you can still hand the weapon over and it still functions, right? And it's still useful, whereas batteries might be not working so good. So those are the kinds of things that are really in the back of people's minds when they think about these things. And I don't think it's unwarranted. I think that those are all possibilities. If you look at history, there's been many times in giant empires and the entire way of life has disappeared for 1,000 or 2,000 years at a time, right? And so it's not crazy to think like that, although it is very entertaining for us when we're sitting here in the golden days, right? But we're going to talk about the Primary Arms 1-power Compact Prism Scope. This little prism scope is very similar in terms of its overall configuration and how it's used to a red dot. It's a very compact footprint, right? And it's not totally parallax free. No scope truly is going to be that way, but it's got such a large exit pupil diameter, I think it's like 13 millimeters, to where there's a lot of forgiveness in terms of the eye box. You can be behind there and you can still get rounds on target without being super critical exactly where your head is placed. And it does have illumination. There's 11 brightness settings here. If you guys watch the movie Spinal Tap, 11 is much more powerful than 10, right? That's a joke. But anyways, it's got 11 brightness settings here, and it's got a lot of other nice attributes to it that you're not going to find actually in red dot designs. So, this is a prism scope. That means that there's actually lenses in here. It means there's actually a reticle in here that's etched into the glass. It's a laser etched reticle. You use a laser to cut it out on the glass. And there's actually some functions to the ACSS design which allow you a little bit of ranging and a little bit of medium range capabilities, or what I would maybe call close range. You can shoot out to 300 to 400 yards relatively precisely if you understand how to use these reticles. But this combines the durability and flexibility of a reticle with the speed and ease that you're going to see in a red dot design. Now, one thing that you're going to see as a big improvement of this particular 1-power prism scope over other prism optics is that it has a really generous 3.7-inch eye relief. So you don't have to be right up on it like some of the other prism scope designs. Like if you're familiar with the Reticle ACOGs, some of those you have to be right up on them. There's different models, right? But this one's pretty generous. You're almost 4 inches away from it, so you can have it mounted and configured similar to like a red dot, and it actually gives you a nice crisp view all the way around the circumference of the lenses. This particular scope also has the standard 1913 MIL standard Picatinny rail mounts available for it, which is nice because you got the quick detach mount set up, so it's very universal in its mounting capability, and it's compatible with the industry standard microdot mounts as well. So we're going to go over the features real quick here. So you got, first of all, the glass etched reticle that works with the illumination either turned on or off. So if you do run out of batteries in the future, right, after all the stuff happens or whatever, you still have an aiming point reticle, still a scope, right? And if you do find a battery, well, that's bonus points. And it does have a battery life of 3,000 hours. This one runs the CR2032 battery, which is pretty universal. So this scope has the Cyclops ACSS reticle. The ACSS, as most of the viewers on this channel might know, if you're new to the channel, we'll explain it real quick. It's the Advanced Combat Sighting System that's fielded in some of the TA31 scopes, the Triticons. It's also on a lot of primary arms other optics. That's one of the nice things that they have to offer. Primary arms, for the most part, I think the big advantage is the reticle designs. There's a lot of other optics out there that are probably even made in the same kind of part of the world. But the reticle design being done properly, I think, is something that makes it useful. The reticle is the tool, and this is the toolbox, like some of our other friends have said in the past, right? The cool thing about the reticle on these is you have a horseshoe, right? An inverted horseshoe, an upside down horseshoe, which is bad luck for the guys on the other end of the deal, right? And then in the center of that horseshoe, you're going to have a tiny little chevron aiming point. So what that allows you is the horseshoe is going to give you that like point blank, fast target acquisition, and that tiny chevron in the middle, you're going to have an infinitely small aiming point that is etched in the reticle and is very sharp. Your eye is going to not be able to discern the tip of that little spike. So you can aim as fine as you need to. You can actually make precision shots with this. What you're going to find with some of the red dot designs is the LED projects the beam onto there, and then that beam, you see it in your eye, but sometimes it depends on your vision, depends on if you got astigmatism or not, exactly how your eyes are. But a lot of times you'll see comet tailing, which is kind of a streak off to one side. You might see a cross type shape in there, kind of like Constantine did on the Battle of Milvian Bridge, or you might see like a haloing around it. And so a lot of times, if you've ever tried to make like a real precise shot with the red dot, a true red dot sight like an aim point, it's somewhat difficult. You have to crank the power down to where you almost can't see it, so that it's not like clouding your vision. And that different people have different eyes, but that is an issue that has been reported, and that is something that I've struggled with too, with aim points. In all reality, I mean, I can hit stuff with an aim point in a carbine, like a 5.56 carbine like this, out to 300 yards, no problem. Beyond that, if it's a smaller target, it becomes very difficult. Or if you're making a small, if you're making an extremely precise shot, even at something closer that's a smaller target, that red dot very, very often will cloud up the view of that target. With this, you have an actual reticle that's etched into the glass. You can turn the power down to where it's still very sharp, or you can just turn it off. And now you have that black standard reticle with the chevron. And the chevron's awesome because as fine as you can see with your eyeballs is as fine as you can aim. So if you're zeroing this, it's especially nice because you can get a very precise zero on here. And like I said before, if you want to make a precise shot at a little bit farther distance, you can actually make that happen if you can see the target. But you can use the reticle actually for ranging. One of the nice things about the primary arms is that they have OCD level quality control in terms of making sure that everything comes out in the end product to actually be properly situated. A lot of different optics companies, you'll find that in the book it says that this is the actual distance that it might be in minutes of angle or whatever your ranging capabilities are. When you check that, you'll find that it never was really verified in the field, and the quality control wasn't there. And some design of something internal on the lens has adjusted it, and then no one checked it. And so that's one of the reasons I do like these guys, is they're very, very OCD on making sure that it's going to be done properly. And so there's bullet drop compensation available for all kinds of stuff: 223 Remington, 5.56, 5.45 by 39, 308 Winchester, 7.62, NATO. And then of course you can also do 300 blackout in 7.62 by 39. And so you can get all the ACSS reticles, and in the instructions it'll tell you which load and barrel length that's best suited for it and which atmospheric conditions and altitude. And so it provides all the same awesome stuff that you'll see in the other ACSS reticles on a smaller scale, configured specifically to work okay in a 1-power optic. You have a quick adjust diopter ring back here. So what you're going to do, this is your one focal adjustment, right? You get it on and you just turn this ring until when you're panning the landscape, it's just going to look like you're looking through a window. There's no wall-eyeing. There's no weird distortion in the picture. You're just going to turn that until it looks like you're looking just through like a pane of perfectly fine glass. Once you got it set for your eyeballs, she's done. You don't need to continuously screw around with that. The turrets that we have on here are half minute of angle adjustments, and they do have the little cable retention deal so you don't lose your caps. Now this is maybe my one critique of the optic, is these little cable deals are a little bit chintzy, but it's a budget optic, right? It's not a $1,000 red dot. But maybe that could be an improvement if they ever do a Gen 2 design. It's these little wires get snagged up in here, and the way they're lassoed around the turrets, I found that when you're trying to take them off, you kind of got to fumble with it a little bit. Not a huge critique for something that costs like $200. Just something I did notice. It's 4 inches long, and it only weighs 9.7 ounces, so it's relatively compact. Not going to weigh a lot, not going to be horrible to use. The field of view is nice. It's like a 76 or 77 yard field of view at 100 yards distance. So you're going to see pretty much everything going on in front of you in your lane of fire once you get this thing shouldered, and it's not going to be any kind of tunnel vision going on. It's very nice for that. It's very easy to run around and shoot with, acquire your target, pull the trigger a bunch of times, move it around again, and so it's very easy to use. And this deal actually is protected by a lifetime warranty, okay? That's something that I did notice that they put on there, which is pretty cool. So if you did happen to break it, which I don't see how you could break a prism scope like this. And that's one of the other things too, man, is like the prism scopes are incredibly rugged. They're actually a lot more rugged than a standardly configured scope with a tube in there. The prism scopes just in general, just in terms of their design, are inherently very rugged. And so this is something you could throw on like an AK or an FAL or a SCAR, and I don't think you could break it. They're very, very tough. Also, the adhesives they use, from when I'm talking to some of the engineers, are very, very well equipped for all different temperature ranges. I spend a little bit more money on those adhesives, and they work a lot better than you might find in some of the other budget stuff you might have grown up with. So all in all, what I think is cool about this is that you can get into a serious battle optic for like $200 that doesn't totally rely 100% on batteries, and you still have the option of illumination if you can have batteries, but if you ever ran out, it would still be good 30 years down the road, 50 years down the road, whatever. So that's something that I thought was kind of cool. We've been running on this little Mark 18 for a while, and it's a good little optic, man. It's very easy to make precise shots with. Like I said before, I really actually do like the reticle. It's somewhat hard for me to utilize the actual ACSS features in terms of the bullet drop because it's so small in the 1 power. And you can put a magnifier behind here, and then you'll be able to see that a bit better. And they do sell magnifiers. In terms of like, I used to have 2015 vision. Now it's like not even 2020 anymore. I did find out that the vision eventually goes out, right? But it's very, very effective in terms of making precise shots, even out the couple hundred yards we found out. So I like the reticle. I think it's the reticle is the biggest improvement over the red dots you're going to see, because you can get that super fine aiming point. And like I said before, of course, the reticle's always there too. So that's a good feature. So if you're looking for something that you don't want to break the bank on, but it's going to be a lot more heavy duty even than maybe like a high dollar red dot scope, this is a nice alternative, man. Like, it's not a bad way to go. Hey guys, Rex here. Thanks for watching the video. It was awesome to have you. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for whenever YouTube cracks down on us. The newsletter can be found at www.rexreviews.org. Subscribe to that newsletter. You'll get updates on any kind of cool stuff, wherever the rendezvous is going to be when the Russians come and invade the place, like on the movie Red Dawn, and all kinds of other fun details like the latest podcast episodes and latest reviews. Do make sure to check out our podcast show. We got lots of hours of incredible content where we're actually allowed to be honest with how we feel about things. We're highly edited on this very highly politicized platform now that YouTube has become. So on our podcast show, we get pretty Western, we have a lot of fun, and we really tell you a lot more detail about our true opinion on the way the world goes. We also talk about all kinds of questions and answers related to long-range shooting, tactical stuff in general, survival, prepping, scenarios, what-if scenarios, all kinds of fun stuff. The podcast is one of the funnest projects we've ever done. Do make sure to check that out. We give you little tiny excerpts here on this YouTube channel, but for the entire full-length shows, which are usually a good 2, 3, 4 hours of incredible content, you're going to want to go to rexreviews.org to find the podcast shows. They're available on SoundCloud and iTunes. If you're looking for some Tier 1 rifle training, please visit rexdefense.com. That's our training hub that will show you our currently scheduled events. If you do want to see us while we're still doing this, go check that out. And we would love to come see you in person, hang out, and get you squared away on the precision rifle.